Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining the Tech Insiders. My name is Sumit Haldankar, and I'll be your host today. To get us started, let me introduce by telling you who we are and what we do through a couple of videos coming up next.
Now that I've lost everything to you, you say you want to start something new, and it's breaking my heart you're leaving. Baby, I'm grieving, but if you want to leave, then take good care. Hope you make a lot of nice friends out there, but just remember that a lot of bad everywhere. You know I've seen what the world can do, and it's breaking my heart in two. 'Cause I never want to see you a sad girl. Don't be a bad girl.
Reinvention moves the world forward, and that's what we do best.
Oh, baby, it's a wild world.
We are Globant, the company you probably don't know, behind many of the digital transformations you do know.
Oh, baby, it's a wild world.
Globant. Seek reinvention.
Across the world, companies have been challenged to remain in constant evolution, transform their culture and business models, rethink customer experiences, and take advantage of new technologies such as artificial intelligence. Companies face the challenge to become augmented organizations. At Globant, we help pave the way towards this future. We work together with businesses around the world to define their way ahead and augment their capabilities to create new approaches for processes, products, and strategies. We create agile and resistant cultures where teams not only create change, but also adapt rapidly, creating exceptional experiences for millions of people. We walk along this road relying on our set of disruptors and accelerators, driven by artificial intelligence. All of this boosted by our system of studios and agile pods, operating units that foster creativity and innovation. We are a native digital company focused on helping organizations rethink themselves and find their way forward through digital and cognitive transformation. The future is now, and it belongs to augmented organizations.
Great. Now that we've got a sneak peek into how Globant is a disruptor in the professional services arena, we'll now get started with an amazing web conference on Chatbot, a business perspective. Our speaker today is Sakshi Tiwari, who is part of Globant's business analyst team. She's working with a product studio and an enthusiastic on chatbot technology. We appreciate curious minds, so please feel free to ask questions to our SME in the chat window. So without any further ado, we'll now commence with the Tech Insiders. Over to you, Sakshi.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you for introducing me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I recently had an opportunity to work for a client and create a chatbot from scratch. I had a set of learnings that I'd like to share with you today through this presentation. We'll be covering areas of AI evolution first. We'll talk briefly about how AI has evolved to become the chatbot that we use on our small devices today. We'll talk about AI for businesses. What are the kinds of projects, how you can incorporate AI into your organization. Then talk about what are chatbots and the types of chatbots, and why do you need to pursue a chatbot for your organization if it fits your needs. And if you've made the decision to get a chatbot implemented for your organization, then how do you start? Not only as a business owner, but also as a product owner, what are the areas where you start with? And then we'll conclude with the basic chatbot frameworks that are available in the market and what are the popular chatbot platforms and a small comparison between the two. Starting with AI evolution. So even though chatbot seems like something which has popularized over last decade, it's been around for a long time. Artificial intelligence and its technology development has hugely contributed how well-versed the current day chatbots have become. I have tried to look at the products that were developed, the chatbots that were developed over time, and put them into three different categories divided by three major events in the internet history. We'll talk about the pre-AI phase, the personal assistants, and the interactive assistants. Let's start with the pre-AI phase. Now, the first chatbot was named Eliza. It was released in the year 1965-66, and it was developed by the MIT's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. It did the basic functioning how chatbot works today. It would take keywords as input, and it would process it according to like the defined set of rules, and it would provide an output. The basic logic behind chatbots still remains the same. Of course, the AI technology has improved, which has improved how the chatbot would infer and process this data, but the basic logistics behind the chatbot functioning still remains the same. Following Eliza, there was another chatbot released named Parry, which was actually developed by a psychiatrist named Kenneth Colby. He was studying patients with paranoid schizophrenia, and he tried to simulate a chatbot to function like a human who would be suffering to paranoid schizophrenia. It hugely contributed to his study and his research. Followed by that, there were a few more products that came through, which were hugely inspired by Lisa and Parry. Eventually came through Alice, which stands for Artificial Linguistic Internet Computer Entity. It was developed in 1995 by Richard Wallace. Even though there were 4 or 5 chatbots before it, Alice was kind of the groundbreaking change, the chatbot that came through. It was the first one to win a Loebner Prize, that too thrice. Loebner Prize is handed over to technologies that contribute towards simulating human intelligence. And following the popularity of Alice is when the dot-com bubble or the internet boom happened. Now, the success of Alice and combination of the internet boom is what led to the next phase, wherein more and more companies became interested in artificial intelligence. Now, this is the phase which I like to identify with the smartphone era. Now, the user was not only looking to resolve their queries on a system or on a desktop, but they were also trying to get things done onto their smaller device. This is when Apple came up with Siri, and around in the year 2010, and they introduced the conversational assistance concept in the market, and it was very quickly followed by Google and Microsoft, and it became the next thing. Now, chatbots were not limited to just solving existing problems, but they were also how can we upsell our products, how can we make the user stay on our website for longer, how can we help the user with things that even the user hasn't identified as a problem as of yet. So this is where the second phase of AI ended. The third phase is the current phase that we are in. We have the incoming of Alexa and Google Home, the how would you call an interactive assistance, your home support system. They came into play, which is what was followed by the AI boom in the industry. Now, AI boom was hugely contributed by companies like Telegram and WhatsApp. In 2015, Telegram opened its APIs, allowing individual contributors and developers to come and build and deploy bots onto their platform. Now, this helped improving the functionality of chatbot and taking it to the next level. Now, you were not limited by resources, you were not limited by platform. Every individual contributor with an idea was able to build and deploy a bot, which is how the current improvement of chatbots and the regular bots happened. Currently, WhatsApp, Slack, WeChat, all of them offer the same facility to build a chatbot. WhatsApp, in fact, in the May of this year, opened one of its API, allowing the smaller businesses to utilize WhatsApp as a bot channel to upsell and have the conversation of their business. Earlier, it was only open for the larger businesses. So that also is something that is going to change the outlook of chatbot usage in the current IT industry. Now, we've talked about the evolution of the bots and talked about different products that were released over the years. I'd like to show you 2 videos that kind of precisely show within the last 5 years how quickly AI has been developing. The first video will talk about Google's demonstration of Google Assistant, almost mimicking a human-like conversation, and followed by a Facebook video created by Mark Zuckerberg displaying another artificial intelligence home assistant system, which is way above, which is way more advanced with what Google has envisioned in the earlier stages. So you would see the time difference between these two videos is only of 5 years, but the technology improvement has been something as of decades. So let me play the first video for you.
So how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
So in this video, you saw how Google had envisioned almost human-like conversations to be done by Google Assistant. Now, the next video, I'm sorry, yeah. The next video is by Mark Zuckerberg talking to his home assistant in the voice of Morgan Freeman. I hope you are able to enjoy this video because it shows how vast the difference between what Google had envisioned and what currently Meta is working on looks like.
Good morning, Jarvis.
Good morning, Mark. It's Saturday, so you only have 5 meetings. Room temperature is set to a cool 68 degrees.
Earlier this year, I started building a simple AI to help run our home. I talked to Jarvis using this app I built. It uses artificial intelligence to understand me and figure out what to do.
Max woke up a few minutes ago. I'm entertaining her.
All right, let's go check on her.
Good morning, Max. Let's practice our Mandarin. Xiao shong mao.
Jarvis, your Mandarin is so soothing.
Xie.
Jarvis also helps me get ready in the morning. Fresh shirt.
Fire in the hole.
Hell yeah. Jarvis knows when to make me breakfast.
Your toast is ready.
All right. It's time for my call with Shrep. Can you get him on the video conference line?
Setting up the VC room now. Remember to check on the AI guidance system for Aquila.
One of the best things about Jarvis is it could recognize people at the gate, let them in automatically, and then just tell me about it.
Mark, your parents are coming in.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
It's Jarvis.
And Jarvis can play all of our favorite music. Hey, play us some good Nickelback songs.
I'm sorry, Mark. I'm afraid I can't do that. There are no good Nickelback songs.
Good. That was actually a test. Okay, how about just play some songs that our whole family likes?
Itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout.
What? I'm a dad now. This is what I listen to. Jarvis also likes to join our family for playtime. Who should we tickle next?
I think we should tickle Max.
I'm also experimenting with other voices.
Stop her! She's getting away! Do it now!
And if I don't want to talk, I can just text Jarvis through a messenger bot that I built.
I hope you liked the video. It's really perspective. I think it puts things to perspective how well AI can be a support system in your house, not only providing support with your daily chores and activities, but also providing security for your household. And also, there's always a plus point of waking up to Brad Pitt's voice. I would always say yes to that. Next, I'd like to jump on to AI for businesses. Now, in this category, I have tried to explain the kind of AI implementation as an organization you can bring into your ecosystem. Chatbots are not the only option. They evolve to become chatbot, but if you are trying to dip your toes into having AI take care of certain things in your organization and then finally make bigger decisions whether or not to move further in the technology, these are the 3 kinds of implementation that you can pursue as a business owner. The first one being process automation, or more commonly known as RPA, robotic process automation. Now we have business process automation already in place. How does RPA differ from that? RPA takes over the only human activity that BPA needs, which is inputting the data and getting the output, and also inferring using that data. RPA is completely robotizing your business process automation, and that allows you to handle your regular back office administration activities or financial activities or basic HR activities in an automated fashion. And you don't have to get involved in the more redundant and regular activities to see if they are happening appropriately or not. It is, of course, the least expensive and the easiest to implement. One of the earlier success stories of RP implementation is from NASA. NASA was going through a phase where they had to cut down costs from their repetitive tasks so that they can focus more on the bigger projects. That is when they had set up 4 RPAs to handle their back office administration and HR application. And within the first year of implementing those, they noticed that there was almost 86% of the transaction that were completing without any human interference. Now there is one downside to this, that you have to plan for certain things. There's some sort of people training and some sort of expertise, technology expertise hiring that you would be requiring. But over the time, the cost pays back to itself because you are getting rid of the repetitive task and not having to look back at making sure that the basic procedures or the basic processes are in place. So this was about the process automation. Now we'll talk about cognitive insights. Now we all know about analytics. Analytics is data collection for your website, for your product, to see how your employees or your users are actually utilizing the product. Now cognitive insights takes that to next level. I like to call it analytics on steroids, because cognitive insight not only gathers data from the user pattern, from the user usage, but it also detect patterns using algorithms. So it provides you information on not only what your user is buying, but also over time predict what your user would likely to buy. It can identify fraud in real time. It can help you push personalized digital ads. You can target a certain audience depending on the user behavior and push digital advertisements to them. You would be seeing that pretty much on all the websites. If you are going through Facebook and you are showing interest in one kind of product, you would see that next time you would keep on getting similar products advertisement. This is all personalized targeting, and cognitive insights has a huge role in getting that data. So earlier, like, data curation was very labor intensive, but with the use of machine learning into data analytics, now it can help you find the probabilistic matches, and it can predict and understand the consumer behavior much better. How they are different from traditional analytics, as I said, they are more data intensive and detailed, and the models are trained on certain part of data set, but they tend to evolve more and more data as more and more data is collected. They tend to evolve and the models get better. One of the success stories with respect to cognitive insights was from GE. GE claimed to have saved $80 million in the first year of using cognitive insights into their daily business and negotiating contracts. Same goes for Deloitte audits. Now, Deloitte audits is auditing contracts on a daily basis, which takes a lot of human force. But there are certain aspects to contracts that remain consistent at all times. They just need to be validated. Deloitte audit used cognitive insights to extract those terms of contracts, and without having any human force, like painstakingly go through them or read through them. This all was covered by cognitive insights. It made sure that the basics of the contract were already achieved, and the human force can focus more on improving quality and include more checkpoints in their audit, because now they have the time and bandwidth to focus on those. So this was about the cognitive insights. Now we'll come to the third and the most advanced part of AI projects, which is the cognitive engagement. This is where your chatbots your chatbots fall into this category. One thing about chatbots is, even though today it seems like chatbots were developed for consumer support or the end user support, that was not how chatbots ideologies were initially placed. The companies were not comfortable with having a robot have conversation with their end users. So instead, the early adaptation of chatbots was for internal communication with the employees, so that bot can help the employees help the end user. So one of the more successful examples is from Vanguard and SE Bank, which is a bank based in Sweden. Uh, they created an intelligent agent avatar named Amelia. It was supposed to be like an internal help desk for their employees itself, a help desk for IT support. And the employees found it very useful. And over time, they realized that the usage of this can be extended to the end user as well. And they slowly, step by step, brought features and opened it to the end user. And eventually, Amelia became a popular chatbot for end user interaction as well. So this was about the kind of AI projects that you could categorize. If you are an organization looking to automate a certain process, you don't have to directly jump into chatbots, but you can start with RPAs, utilize cognitive insights, and then make the best of both by finally moving on to cognitive engagement. So we've talked about evolution, we've talked about the types of chatbot, um, we've talked about how chatbots can contribute to AI adaptation in your organization. How would you define a chatbot? If I were to put it in simple keywords, it's a website based widget which is now extendable to mobile devices as well as native application, which provides a guided textual conversational experience for the end users without any real time human intervention. This is the key why chatbots are becoming popular. So that has to be always included in the definition of chatbot. This is how I would put a chatbot definition together. Moving on to the next part, types of chatbots. So there are several categories of chatbot, but they are on a higher level put into three major categories. Let's talk about them one by one. The first one is rule-based chatbot. This is a very basic design of chatbot where the end user is not actually given an input field where they can type in their questions or their queries. It's mostly like a flow chart mechanism where, as a business, I have automated 5 processes for the end user to be able to resolved on chatbot. Say you are on Swiggy and you are on the customer support, you open their chatbot and it gives you three options, which are the most commonly asked questions of the users. Where is my order? How can I cancel my order? Where is my refund? So those are the three questions. And if your query lies within those three sections, you can just click on the option, it will show you the next steps, click on the option, show you the next steps, and that's how your workflow would be concluded. So you did not have to type any information and your query was resolved very quickly. It's fast, it's simple, and it's very easy to build, and it's very comfortable for the user to navigate through because the chatbot is telling you limited options where to click through. So the user cannot get confused with lot many options. It's very directed and it's very precise. So these are the rule based chatbots. The second one are the AI chatbots. These are the chatbots which use NLP, natural language processing, to understand a sentence structure. So instead of just giving options to the user like A, B, C, you choose one of them, uh, the chatbot is expecting you to type them. Now, in the background, in the behind scenes, the chatbot would have the processes defined for it. If you continue with the example of Swiggy, it will still have the same three options, but it will accept much more than this exact keywords to understand the workflow. So if I want to cancel my order, you don't have to write exactly cancel my order for it to understand that that is what you're willing to do. Instead, there are certain utterances defined. I will be talking about intents and utterances later in the screen, in the presentation, but certain, you can say, synonyms defined for a particular action. So instead of canceling my order, you can just type I don't want my order. And with the word I don't want my order, if it is defined and the chatbot has the ability to understand that because of the past conversation, it will understand that this is where you're getting at. So it will provide you the option, okay, are you trying to cancel this order? This is your order. What items would you like to cancel? So now this is the natural language processing, and this is where your chatbot is intelligent. So instead of giving you a flowchart kind of option, it's giving you an input field where you can make your queries and it will try to respond them with the best of its ability. It also includes a lot of cognitive insights because there would be chances, there would be situations where the chatbot will not be able to understand something. So those insights are taken up in a different segmentation. Okay, these were the queries that I did not understand. So how can I interpret the meaning of these as well, so that next time this question is asked, I know the answer. So this is the evolution of the understanding of the chatbot. So this is how I would define an AI chatbot. Coming to the next one, which is the hybrid chatbot, it's the combination of both of the options, the rule-based and the smart chatbots or the AI-based chatbots. So again, I'll continue with the example of Swiggy. I have the three options listed, which are the most commonly pursued options by the user. But I also at the same time have the chat input box open. So if you are not pursuing for any of the questions which are already listed, you can directly ask a question. And as an AI-based chatbot would function, it will understand your query and it will give you an appropriate response. So hybrid chatbots allows you a larger coverage of area, and it utilizes the cognitive insights as well as business process, the robotic process automation to be able to respond well to the users. It is amazing how the chatbot is resolving a query at the same time it is collecting data to improve the resolution to this query in future. So hybrid chatbots are the most advanced version as of now, and you would see that mostly being followed in the banking sectors and travel sectors, where there are a variety of queries that a user would like to get resolved. So this was all about the types of chatbots. Now, if I were to put reasons to why should you go for a chatbot, we know certain obvious reasons. We understand that chatbot implementation is not straightforward. It's not cheap, and it's not something that somebody without an IT background can immediately pick up on. So if I am willing to invest money and time onto bringing in a chatbot into my organization or onto my product, what are the reasons that should push me to do that discussion or make that decision? So let's talk about them one by one. The first one being 24/7 support. This is one of the most basic reasons why chatbots are preferred so much, and especially in the banking and the travel industry, is because the consumer can reach out to the customer support at any given time. If it is a query that is resolvable through the chatbot preset responses, you'll get a solution or a resolution immediately. If it is something that needs intervention from an actual agent, then those queries are collated and kept aside for them, for the agents to be handed over once they come in. So you are basically never losing out on your customers' queries, which eventually leads to more user engagement. You can personalize your chatbots, you can make it multilingual. So if I am somebody who speaks and reads Spanish and I'm not comfortable with English, chatbots can be made to respond in different languages, and it'll make me as a consumer more comfortable talking to a bot versus talking to an individual who may or may not understand my mother tongue. And then of course recently with the social media involvement and people trying to work things on their devices, people appreciate moving forward without any human intervention. So that has been a major data uh, flow in all the latest reports about AI successes, that people are appreciating having to resolve their problems without an actual human intervention. Next one is multifunctional and yet consistent. So you can have a chatbot resolve multiple things for you, but every time you're asking the same question, you'll get the same response. So there is no space for human error. You are getting consistently the same responses every single time, and it leads to faster responses as well. So if you come back with the same question, say a week after, your answer does not change. That helps the customer be sure that I can ask this question now, and if I forget, I can come back later because I'll get the same response again. Then, because of the consistency, there's less misinformation out there. There's a very huge chance in human force trying to respond to your questions. When you are reaching out to a different customer support agent, you would see that they would have a different response. In that process, user tends to lose their interest, and which kind of works in the opposite of business process efficiency. Then, of course, it cuts down the human workload. The idea is not to have people out of jobs, but the idea is to be able to redirect the energy, the human workflows into upskilling and working on future problems, not only the current problems, and resolve bigger things and improve your product. um, Next is, of course, as I mentioned, they are conversational, so it makes the experience no different than talking to a live person, but you can be comfortable because there is no sort of judgment coming through the screen. So it makes it easier for the customers or the end users, or especially the ones who are introverted or are not willing to have longer conversations, feel more comfortable in that space. And of course, it is omni-channel, and it is great for upselling your product. You can use a chatbot to push more products targeted for that particular user. And because it is available on websites, on your native application, on your mobile phones, on social media, it makes it omni-channel as well. So chatbots are accessible everywhere. You don't always have to open your laptop and open a website to be able to access a chatbot. You can do that pretty much on your WhatsApp application as well. So these were a few reasons why having a chatbot might be a great idea. Next, I'd like to talk about how do you start. Now, till this point, you've understood what a chatbot is, how your artificial intelligence can possibly help you in your business. But how do I start? Like, do I go and call somebody and directly start to have a conversation about chatbots, or how do I implement it? Do I Google about it? So I have tried to put down 5 steps that, as a business owner, I would say would be your homework before you actually go ahead and have conversation about implementing a chatbot. So let's start with the first one: understanding your organization's goal. It's very, very important because chatbots say I am a grocery store and I see that Amazon has a great chatbot system or a support system on their website. I want to develop that. But I have a much smaller business. It is not going to be directly fruitful for me to try and imitate exactly what Amazon is doing. So I need to understand what is my goal. Is my goal to reduce the time of resolution of customer issues? Or is my problem that I want to give a better experience on my website because there's so much content on my website? I want the user to be able to easily reach to the exact point where they want to go. Do I want to scale the customer support without like hitting the bottom line? So you have to print down what are your organization's goal. You understand that, then comes the next step where you can see where you can define a purpose for your chatbot. So the next step is defining purpose. Now, once you have understood, listed down all the goals, you need to prioritize them. You need to understand what is the most important thing at the moment that you need to take care of, and make that highest priority item the purpose of your chatbot. In my experience, I have realized that if you are trying to resolve 20 different problems at once, there's a high chance that you would lose focus, and it won't address the main problem. The idea here is that you need to address a series of questions and identify patterns from all the data that you have collected through the customer support or the agents over time, or the website footfall that you have. Using all of that data, you have to see what is it that that your user wants. You want to resolve your user's biggest need through a chatbot. That is the only way you can justify the cost and the time investment behind the chatbot. Next one is, once you have a purpose defined for your chatbot, visualize the user journey. Now, I have decided that the purpose of my chatbot would be to allow, say, cancellation of an order. I am a food delivering service, and I want the cancellation of an order to be as simple as a click of button, and the user doesn't have to call my customer support and be like, hey, I don't want that order, and the customer support is taking more details with you and trying to resolve that. I want my chatbot to be able to do that. So these regular calls about cancellation of order, which are happening like 30 times a day, they go to the chatbot, so my customer support team can focus on more specific problems. So you have to visualize the user journey. Now that I've decided that I want my chatbot to support cancellation of the order, how does cancellation on my website works? How does cancellation process behind the scene works? If I were canceling the order with the current process, what are the steps? The user has to call, the agent has to type in the order number, then they have to get the order details, then they put in the request to cancel it only if it is not already shipped, and then depending on that, they will agree or disagree to cancel the order. So I want my chatbot to know all of that. So the chatbot has to be fed with information on the status of the order, if it's been shipped or not, if it is still cancelable or not. And with all that information, should you be enabling or disabling the cancel button or showing the error message to the user? So all of this being automated on the chatbot, you have to visualize what is the process that currently exists. Your chatbot cannot create a new process for an existing workflow, but you have to understand your existing workflow deeply so that you can plan out a basic uh, step of actions that needs to be done. And then perhaps in the future, once a user is comfortable using your chatbot and pursuing that workflow through chatbots, then you can look at improving the experience. Next, once you have visualized your user journey, define the workflows. Of course, we talked about visualizing the journey. Defining workflows is a more specific task relating to that. So, say the user logs in and I want to have a return initiated for one of the orders that I've placed. So my existing workflow is calling the person, raising a request, who would in the system log in that this return request has to be submitted, and then send it to a pickup partner who would pick that order from the user and pass on the address request to them. So I know this is my current user journey. This is how I have visualized it. Now the workflow would be the user logs in, user gets the options return, exchange, cancel, and the user chooses return. Then display the list of eligible orders. So you've already in the background uh, decided which are the orders which are eligible for return. So you show those to them. The user select one which they would like to pursue for return items. Then show all the items within that order. Then ask them to select one or multiple orders, and then you can go ahead and ask for a confirmation. And the user says yes. You trigger an email confirming the same. Simultaneously, you trigger an email to your return partner raising a request to pick up this return. So this is how your workflow is defined. Now, even though when you have your consultants involved in the process, this would be a more refined process. But if you have this done as a homework as a business owner before you move on to a consulting company, this would give you a very straightforward vision of how you want your product to look like. So there's very little scope of misunderstandings or miscommunications. Finally, the fifth step is define a timeline and budget. As much as a chatbot is capable of, everything comes with a price and everything comes at a cost. So you have to, if you are somebody who is adapting a chatbot for the first time, I would always recommend go step by step. Define a timeline that I would want to release something in 6 months. So that will help your consultant to design MVP first, so that within that budget and within the list of options of features that you've provided and within that time range, we can prioritize things and we can then move on to decide how your actual product would look like, at least in the first release. So these are the 5 steps I have learned if are already thought through before you jump onto the bandwagon of developing a chatbot. It makes things easier. It's not a must have. If I go by the Moscow rule, it's not a must have, but it's a should have, and it would be a great add for future conversations with your team. It makes it much, much easier if you have a backward approach decided. You have your goal set, and then you work backward from there. So it always helps your team to envision what you are envisioning instead of being like all over the place and scattered with, I want a chatbot like Expedia, or I want a chatbot like HDFC. I want a chatbot that fulfills my needs, should be how you should start. With that in place, now the other side of the table is the product owner who has to align with the development of the product. How do you start as a product owner? Imagine the previous steps that I talked about that have been already provided to you as a product owner. What are the next steps that you would be taking care of? Let me start with the first one. List the tasks that need automation. So the user has already defined the workflows that they have. Now you need to look at what are the tasks that need automation. So you have to identify the bottlenecks in the current process, the scaling challenges, the inadequate firepower. You want a virtual agent to be available when human agents are not available, or do you want it to be a rule-based process, or do you want it to be a complex AI or a AI chatbot process? So you make those decisions depending on the tasks that you have handy, and make a decision of what are the tasks fitting the timeline and the budget that could be automated as a part of the chatbot. Next one, understanding the tools and technology. The customer existing has certain technology that they are using. You have to identify, there are plenty of options available in the market, but you have to identify the more suitable uh, tool and technology that can fit in very easily with the existing technology in with the client's product. And it should be a seamless process, and it should be suitable. Unsuitable technology can lead to a lot of waste of time and money. So, a thorough study of what kind of technology would fit in like a glove with the existing technology is a very important part of planning from your end. The third part, what platform? So I will be talking about a few platform examples, but same as technology, if you are developing a chatbot from scratch, or if you are utilizing one of the development platforms that are easily available in the market, what fits your need better, make that decision. Of course, all these decisions have to have involvement of the client as well, of the business owner as well, but make sure these questions are asked and answered. Next one, plan ahead. This is very very important. At the moment, because the client is interested in having only a rule based chatbot, does not mean that in future they won't be willing to expand it to a hybrid chatbot. Try to make sure, have conversation with your technical team, try to make sure that your product is expandable, it's scalable. Your code is reusable enough, you're not hard coded and stuck with things that you cannot change without upturning the entire thing. Think of 10 steps ahead, so that if you have to modify the existing product, and let me say this, as a product owner, the clients can be very sure on day one, but over the time as the product is developing, the opinions change. Always make sure that your product is agile enough to adapt to that. Next one, uh, yeah. Next one is soft features are important. So when we are developing a chatbot, it's very easy to go into that flow that it's a robot, but it is going to be having interactions with an actual human being. So make sure that your chatbots are polite and they have the kind of language which is appreciated in user pool. Try not to be very finger pointing, very harsh with the words. It sounds very basic, like, yeah, of course I'm not going to make a rude chatbot, but it is something that is generally overlooked when you are completely engrossed with the UI of the chatbot. UI is important. Of course, having a great flow, having a great appearance of the chatbot is very intriguing for a user. But having the conversation in an appropriate manner is also as important. So keep that in mind. This is why I have listed it over here. This is one of my learnings as well, and I thought that it should be put on to this list as well. And then finally, start with the pilot launch. I understand that every product launch has an MVP concept, but try to make that MVP really minimal. Your first launch should be dealing with the very basic problems, because if your user is not accustomed to or used to using a chatbot, they will be overwhelmed. You want them to be slowly led into this, and of course, in the process, you're also collecting data. What is annoying your user? What is not being fulfilled by your existing product? How can we make it better for the user? And you're collecting all of that data, and that eventually goes back into improving the current product. So always start with a pilot launch and then go big. So this was about how to start from a chatbot perspective. Now I'd like to briefly give you an idea of how a chatbot's general framework looks like. This is again a very general layout. You have three layers. The first one is the user interface, which is your mobile or your social media, or the chatbot on the website. Then you have the intermediate layer, which is where the chatbot is the platform of chatbot is, where the chatbot is developed. And the third layer is the data layer, where all your company's APIs and databases sit. So you're using that data, you are manipulating the responses, and you're throwing it on the UI. So this is the basic framework of a conversational AI. So you have the platforms listed. We'll talk about the platform in the next slide. Then you talk about the execution, which is where the engineering team comes into play. They decide how things would be processed, what are the rules put into place, what does the rule engine look like, what are the definition of workflows and how they'll work on. And then they execute using all the data from the APIs in the layer, which in our case we used to call BFF layer, backend for front end. It varies from organization to organization, but this is the cluster of all the APIs and all the services that your current product is utilizing. You use that data to provide information to the end user. And finally, it is the intent part of the data calculation. Now, as a part of building the workflows, you may want to provide a list of intents and utterances. So like, for example, building a workflow for showing information of your latest reservation. Add intents like confirmation or cancellation or latest booking or past bookings. So essentially, a work that a product owner or a BA would have to take care of. So this was the very basic outlay of how the framework looks like. Then I'd like to briefly talk about what are intents and utterances. Intents are derived from the processes of your organization. So if I am developing a travel chatbot, my intents could be confirming my trip, canceling my trip, updating my trip. These are few examples. I'll take an example for cancel my trip. I'd like to introduce you to this tool, which is an utterance generator, which was very useful for me when I was going through the project. You can log in. It's free and open to use without a sign-in. You enter the intents in the left box, and then you enter the intents with their possible synonyms in the given format that you can see on the screen, the right part, and then you click on the generate utterances, and it provides you the list of all the permutation combinations of what are the utterances for cancel my trip. Like if I'm trying to allow the user enter data to make the request, so they can type a lot more than just cancel my trip. They can type cancel my journey, cancel my reservation. In all the cases, my chatbot should be enabled to understand that it means cancellation only. Just a quick example of the few popular chatbots that I went back to referring every time we wanted a baseline of what is popular in the market. One is Domino's. They are using Facebook Messenger, and they have one of the most footfall on their chatbot to access all the data about their order tracking. The second one is HDFC. Their AI is named Eva, and it is a very end-to-end support kind of system. You can get almost all of your regular responses from Eva without having to call a customer care support system. And then finally, Sephora. Sephora is also using Messenger and Kik, which is a Canadian messenger brand. They have great, why I've included this option is because they analyze the customer's question very proactively. So you can ask something as specific as, what do I wear with my pink lehenga? And they would be able to suggest you eyeshadows according to that. And mind you, this is all through automated responses, looking at the data that has been collected over time and responding accordingly. So that makes Sephora as a really great example as well. We've been talking about popular chatbot platforms. I wanted to quickly mention about two of the most popular chatbot platforms. First one being Amazon Lex, and the second one being Rasa. Amazon Lex is great. It's very easy to set up. One of the drawbacks is that it's only available in English and it is required to pay per use. Rasa is, however, currently more popular than Lex in the market, firstly because it's open source, and secondly because it's multilingual. You can have multiple languages support through Rasa. So take a call on what kind of platform you want to go through, depending on your product. If your product doesn't need multilingual support, you don't have to choose Rasa. These are a few more examples of other development platforms available. Very quickly, I'd like to mention a small example of the project that I had worked on developing the chatbot. I'll mention the basic idea behind it. The purpose for developing this chatbot were what are the 5 points listed here. They wanted to retain the consumer. The client was switching from a big existing chatbot system to developing their own chatbot from scratch. So their main concept was that their consumer should be retained because the consumer is used to using a certain chatbot already. They wanted the behavior to be similar so that the user doesn't face like a behavior shock and the change in the usability of product. Then they also eventually wanted to save money by saving on the margins, and the customer should be satisfied more because it will allow you to develop a chatbot from scratch, so you can configure it more than a third party would allow you to. So you develop your own product so that you can in future add as much modification to it as you can. And then reduce one of the main items were also they wanted to reduce the calls that were going to their customer support system, the customer call center. The issues that we faced were that because the existing users were already used to a certain design, so it was very difficult to innovate with keeping that in mind. We did not want to shock the user, but we also wanted to do better than the existing chatbot. It was a very tough competition. We had predefined workflows for everything because, as I said, the chatbot was already existing. They wanted to build one from scratch. So with predefined workflow, where there was very little scope of intervening with new data search for in future, perhaps, but not for the MVP. Then mismatch with what the APIs could provide. So when you were using a third party chatbot, it was handling certain things which were market and industry standard. But once you come to build your own product from scratch, you see that your APIs are not capable of certain activities, but you want to provide that feature because your user was accustomed to it. So it was a little difficult to match what we are capable of versus what we really wanted. So that was kind of a problem there, which we had to come around with. And Amazon Lex, we faced that we adapted Amazon Lex as a platform, and we uh, noticed that Amazon Lex has certain stringent rules with respect to how your services should be performing. For an example, the service should respond within 5 seconds, otherwise Amazon Connect will pass on a failure to UI. But certain services which had to respond back with a huge chunk of data used to take more than 5 seconds, sometimes 6 seconds or 7 seconds. So to change that time limitation on Amazon Connect was a huge problem for us, and we had to find a work way around it to make it function somehow. So this was a brief of the project that I worked on. It was a loyalty travel platform based company, and we developed a chatbot to support with the travel planning. Finally, I'd like to conclude our presentation with highlighting 5 things that were my learnings working on a chatbot project. So your end product, let me just say, it's just the peak of the glacier. There is so much more that will go in behind. Many of you would already be aware of these processes. They are kind of general to all kind of products, but I would like to specify certain things to chatbot here. The first thing is be incremental over transformative. I had talked about this initially as well, that go step by step. Don't try to change up your user experience 180 degrees, because you're not only going to surprise your user, you might annoy them as well. And this would take a lot of time. If it fails, it will be a huge failure. So smaller failures are much better than a huge failure. So just go incrementally instead of transforming everything. Next one, prioritize portfolio per the business needs. As I had talked about how to start in the slides, talking about how to start, prioritizing your portfolio is so important. You can have 5 things that you want to achieve, but you need to prioritize all of them so that you always have those 3 must-have services or 3 must-have features that should be taken care of first. Because in the process of achieving that, there are very large chances of losing the time, losing the budget. So you have to just skip on things instead of just going ahead and skipping things and losing things in perspective. Prioritize your needs initially so that even if only the first 3 high priority items are met, you know that these were the items that were must have for you. So you are not wasting a lot of time per se and not achieving the result that you wanted. Finally, communication is so important. Uh, when there are a huge team of people, especially a platform development team, then you have a back-end team, then you have a front-end team, proper communication and lack of understanding what the client envisions is a major source of any sort of problem. Any problem that I've faced in any of my past projects or this project were purely because of lack of communication. So I always emphasize on communicate, over communicate, confirm, reconfirm anything and everything that you are planning. Make sure that they are part of all your sprint plannings and all your um, uh, pre-refinements and refinement strategies. Next one is user validation and data gathering. Collect as much data as you can from the market. You have whatever product you're trying to develop, there is similar or a baseline product already existing in market. Study their functioning, understand their case study, understand their failures, understand their success, plan accordingly. There are things that you may not be able to envision, but somebody has already gone through that. So do your homework, research as much as you can to make sure that you're not lacking in any kind of preparedness. So these were all the experiences that I had while working on the project. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. And thank you all for being a part of this webinar. I'm very grateful for you. And any questions, any queries that you might have, please feel free to post them in the chat. I would be more than happy to respond to you. And thank you again so much for showing up.